Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to be doing a mid-year homeschool update for my 4th grader who is 10 years old. This is our official 2nd year of homeschooling, although when she was in public school K through 2nd, I did supplement homeschool at home, but this is our 2nd year fully homeschooling, so I'm going to be going over her individual subjects in this video. The video prior to this, I did my 6-year-old first grader. I'll link that up above. The video after this will be our group subjects. So this will be her main individual things that she does. So I have her little schedule here. Again, this is just a printout from Canva. It's more for me than her, but she pretty much has the flow of the school year down. There are a few changes that happened. For example, when we finished IEW over the summer and into the fall, we switched that out with Lightning Lit, so she's doing Lightning Lit instead of IEW. But let's start with math. So she's doing Dimensions 3A. So yes, is she in 4th grade, but working through level 3? Yes, and that's because she just had some gaps left by the public schools. So, and I find Dimensions goes a lot more thorough and in-depth, which I prefer. So we're working through 3A, and it's going really well. She's doing multiplication, division. And that is what we're working through, and it's the same like my oldest. She'll do a textbook lesson one day. Next day, she'll do the workbook lesson independently, unless she has questions, and she does, when she finishes each chapter, she will do the test individually. And I think it's going really well. I look over her tests when I grade them, and if she misses anything, it's only 1 or 2 questions. One thing that's frustrating her is she's starting to realize that if you make a simple math error in a multi-step problem, it will make the entire rest of the problem wrong. So she's working through that frustration that, yes, I need to make sure I'm correctly writing down the problem or the numbers so it doesn't mess up my answer. But for someone who was very reluctant in math prior to homeschooling and had a lot of anxiety with it, she's doing fantastic. Her confidence with it has really gotten a lot better, and I think a lot of it is to do with Dimensions because, like I said, it goes a lot more thorough. It approaches math problems in many different perspectives or different ways of solving it, which I think is really helpful because, as we all know, our brains all work differently, and the way I see a math problem might be different than the way she sees it. And when I'm helping her, that's what I'll say. I'll say, okay, this is how my brain sees how to work this problem. It's not so much learn a concept, practice it, learn a concept, practice it, but really letting you have the freedom to approach a problem in multiple ways, which is really nice. So she's working through that really well. We haven't had any issues. With Dimensions, I would say with the levels, there seems to be a little bit more work with each onset of a level, and that's completely fine. She's fully capable of doing, 4 or 5 pages of math. And I think it's important that she learns some of the stamina that goes along with. For example, exercise 5 here was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. She's completely capable of doing that, but building up that stamina I think is important. And it's not to the point where she hates doing it or anything like that, but she's definitely entering those preteen years where I don't feel like doing anything sometimes. So being able to trudge through that and realize that you're fully capable of something even though you're not in the greatest mood is important. So that is math. She also does typing. I will leave the website we use down below, completely free. She does 2 typing lessons a week. Usually she'll do them back to back when we have a little free time between lessons or when I'm working with her younger sister. And I think that's just an important skill to practice. She really likes the typing program they do. There's typing practice. I like that it shows you the letter placement on the keyboard and also tells you when you hit the wrong one. So it's a visual learning thing, which I think is really important when you learn typing. When I did typing, it was you prop a book up and you type it, and that was just not the greatest way to learn typing. So that's going really well. If she finishes typing early, she'll do some of the Math Playground online games, and even my youngest will sometimes play those because she can do like the simple addition games, and she really likes that. So for her rotating subjects that she does, one of them is health. You're using the Hardcourt Health and Fitness book. Again, that is going really well. She's covered a lot of different things because we did an intense human body unit this summer and fall. There are some things that she's covered. For example, the entire first chapter was body systems, so we covered some of that. Personal health, so taking care of your body. We've covered a little bit of that in that unit study, but again, I think it's good to teach about food, health. This one goes specifically into nutritional labels and how to read them, how you say stay safe at home, what do you do in an emergency, very good things to learn. She's currently learning about guarding against sickness and washing hands and different things like that. So is it a lot of new information? Not necessarily, but it's sometimes information I think as homeschoolers we don't necessarily think to teach, like basic first aid or an emergency plan and what you should do if this happens or that happens. And it does go into social and emotional things too, like if you're having a fight with a friend or a conflict, how do you resolve that? What do you do if you're being bullied? So role-playing scenarios. So again, we just read through this. Check out my homeschool day in the life if you want to see more specifically how we incorporate any of these things in our homeschool. So one of the other things she rotates between is this and vocabulary, Sadler Vocabulary Workshop. Again, I got this off Thriftbooks for a couple dollars. It was obviously a used copy, and I think the first lesson was used, but besides that, it was completely blank. So she pretty much reads through a story, and then it has the definitions on the next page. And then it has different things you can do. So the match the meanings, synonyms, antonyms, fill in the blank, word associations, and a word study. So looking at root words or prefixes and different meanings of the words. So this is definitely more challenging for her. She did wordly wise in the past. I would say this is definitely a step up from that, but in a good way. She's an avid reader. With vocabulary comes very easily to her. So these are definitely touching on some things she's not necessarily super familiar with or doesn't understand for example, some of the words are drench, distress, dwell, the different meanings of juvenile, sift, spree, and variety. So those are just some of the key words she's working on this past week. But getting to understand them better, I think and I break it up. She'll do one Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. She'll do words or the meanings Monday, next week, or next Tuesday, or Monday she'll do match the meaning. Tuesday she'll do synonyms and antonyms. So she pretty much does a page a day. And then she will rotate in the following week. She'll do word letters, which is a lot easier and lighter. So she really enjoys these, and she is doing the 2nd through 3rd grade one. Just because I felt like that's where she was with that, but both these are going well. Is word ladder she enjoys. Is this her favorite? No. But is she learning and growing from it? Absolutely, and that's the point. I think because she's such an avid reader and language arts comes very easily to her, providing opportunities to challenge her is really important. I have a whole video talking about the importance of, challenge your children homeschool, and I will put that up above. The other thing she is doing that we rotate is Michael Clay Thompson. She finished Grammar Island, so she is on Sentence Island, which pretty much means that she does twice a week, and again, you can see that homeschool video, she does sentence analysis, which goes really well. So she'll noun, verb, adjective, is it a simple or clause, things like that. She writes through everything. I have the teacher's manual. Again, I bought this used off eBay. So here's she'll look for all these things, noun, verb, phrases, clauses, parts of a sentence. So she's able to do that all independently, which is really nice. And I think it's an important practice for grammar, especially why it's important to be able to pick the adjectives or verbs out of a sentence, because I think to write a really well-written sentence, you need to understand how those things interact with each other, how a adverb modifies a verb, how a adjective modifies a noun, how linking verbs, things like that work, because it will ultimately make you a better writer. So she will do, as you can see, one of these a week. So usually I think Tuesdays and Thursdays is when she does it. And then we will just read a couple pages out of Sentence Island. And this has gone really well. I think this is a really good approach to grammar. It's definitely outside the box, and it's different than a lot of grammar programs that are used. And because she is so naturally good at it, I wanted to find something that would be more challenging and come from a different direction, and that's exactly what this program does. And it's not really intensive at all. So it's just, we read a couple pages. It's kind of a story about a fish traveling, and he meets other animals, and they explain the different grammar rules to him. So I can see how some kids might think that was odd, but my daughter really likes it and it works for her. So we're sticking with it. I think this has really improved her grammar much more than any other grammar curriculum we've talked about. For example, we do Lightning Literature, which has grammar, but it's very light grammar, very surface level, and this really provides a deeper understanding of grammar. So we will continue with that. We did Building Language, which is part of this program as well. She's working through Sentence Island right now. One thing I did want to add is that for spelling, she completed All About Spelling Level 1 and Level 2. Right now, I'm not going to put her or go through Level 3 at this moment, because I think she's doing fine. Spelling comes pretty naturally to her, especially since she's an avid reader. So I think we will incorporate Level 3 eventually, but right now I think she's fine with where she is at. So that takes care of all her small individual things. On to language arts. So she finished IEW. She did IEW. Again, I have a review of IEW, I'll link above. She finished IEW. When she finished IEW, we started Lightning Lit grade 4, which is this. So we are in week 12, I believe. So a little before halfway, because we started this later because of IEW. But it's going well. The books she has read so far are, and again, she reads these all independently, which is not an issue for her. And All, The Earth Dragon Awakes, which is a historical fiction about the San Francisco earthquake. Morning Girl, which tells about a story from different perspectives, both the girl and the boy, so each chapter switches perspectives, The One and Only Ivan. And Gone Fishing, which is just a novel, but it's told through different poetry, like acoustic poems, concrete poems, different things. So it's an ongoing story, but each chapter is a different poem told in a different way. So that's really interesting way of talking about poetry. So those are what she has read independently. I really like that Lightning Lit provides a variety. For example, she probably would never have picked up this one about the San Francisco earthquake. And I think it's important to have things like assigned reading that's outside of their normal what they would read, because sometimes they don't realize what great literature is out there until they're exposed to different things. And historical, this led to kind of reading more historical fiction novels. So about, and the assignment that, the writing assignment for those 2 weeks for this book was writing her own historical fiction. So something that she physically took place in, but the story was fake. So she chose to write about the pandemic, her experience with that, but the characters she chose besides herself were not real characters. So that was an interesting thing. Morning Girl, again, she learned how to write something from different perspectives. So she wrote about Christmas morning, her and her brother, and their different perspectives of what Christmas morning was like. One and Only Ivan. So we read this book and we watched the movie. And I know a lot of people have sensitive learners out there. And I have to say, my daughter is really a sensitive person. She cares and feels things deeply for people and as well as animals. And I think it's important that she's at that age where she wants realistic things. She doesn't want all happy endings. She doesn't want, unicorns and fairies and everything perfect. She's getting to the age where she realizes there are injustices in this world. She's realizing that things aren't always fair. So being able to read about that and characters and how they develop and change through their obstacles they're facing, like the hero's journey type thing, she is relating to that because she emotionally, physically is going through changes as well. So I think, is this have some sad parts in it? Absolutely. But is it important for a child to be able to explore those feelings? And literature is a great way to explore those feelings of sadness, of happiness and joy as well, but struggle and perseverance. That's the great thing about literature. So, I won't lie, when we watched the movie, I bawled. I bawled because I'm a big animal lover as well. That was a really good read. Again, not something I think she normally would have picked up. And then The Gone Fishing is really well too. It went over many different types of poems in a fun way. So the reading, I think, is always really great with Lightning Literature. So she's pretty much doing a lot of this independently. So and I like how grade 4 is set up a lot more independently. They have a little checklist here, but she will do the reading and then she will answer the questions independently, and the answers are in the teacher guide. So after she does that, we will go over them. And the nice thing is I don't have to read each book. And then she will have a reading or a grammar lesson for this. And I have to say, the only downside I've really found besides the writing is that the grammar is not very challenging. So for example, she's going over singular and plural nouns, and I thought perhaps maybe it was just the beginning, concrete and abstract nouns, verbs. So because of Michael Clay Thompson, she knows these things really well, like the back of her hand. So she was able to do helping verbs. So for example, this exercise completely independently. She will do the reading and comprehension questions and the grammar exercise completely independently, and then I will let her know what her writing assignment is for that day. But so far it's been really easy, sentence diagramming, those things. She hasn't really been challenged in the grammar with this program. It's a nice review and kind of practice, and that's kind of how I view it. But the Michael Clay Thompson is the thing that's challenging her grammar. So I think utilizing both of them is a really good, well-rounded program. The only other thing she does with this is writing composition. And like I've said in the past, Lightning Literature is weaker in that aspect. It's probably one of their weakest points. And I know they plan on changing or revamping their composition work. But I like that it ties in what they're learning grammar-wise. I like that it ties in the book that they're working with. So for example, I told you she wrote, historical fiction based on what she was reading. So I like that it all ties in. So how I changed that is I just brought in the elements she learned from IEW into her compositional work with Lightning Literature. And I have a whole video on that and how I incorporate it. But it's actually worked wonderfully. So she has a lot of these extra sheets from IEW, kind of like an outline type thing, and we have a board where it lists everything like an ly adverb, but because who, which clause, all these things that are required in an IEW paper by the end of the year. She makes sure that she is still checking off all those things, and it's become so automatic to her, which is awesome because she doesn't have to think about adding these things. It's just naturally she's doing it, and it's turning her papers and her writing into really good writing, which is the point. So it's being able to take a topic or an idea from Lightning Literature, use the aspects and things she learned from IEW into her paper, and write really good, or well-written papers, I should say. So for example, this was one of them. This is when she wrote about the pandemic, and she wrote 4 pages. And most of the time she can finish the writing assignment in Lightning Lit in a couple days, and that's completely fine. If she's done early, she doesn't have to continue until the next week when we pick up the next part of the assignment. But just like I did with IEW, I would just go through, and if there's any grammar mistakes, I will highlight that, I'll write it, and I don't make her write a rough and a final draft. She will go through her rough draft and just make the corrections that I noted, much like we did in IEW. But being able to pull in the scaffolding skills that IEW provides really has helped her writing. For example, we are doing right now, the assignment was to write about a specific culture or cultural traditions. So she chose Hanukkah because it was the Christmas season. So she wrote about Hanukkah, their belief system, and the Festival of Lights. She wrote about the dreidel game, a tradition, and then the types of food. So she's able to make a keyword outline and quickly outline what she wanted to do. She was able to take her checklist, write all the things, and in probably 2 days had a 4-page paper. So it's amazing. And I think going into writing, because she had no previous experience writing, because K through second, they really, in public school, don't teach any aspects of writing. IEW has really elevated her skill level in being able to articulate the things she wants to articulate in writing. So I'm really, really pleased with that. So how she is doing personally, so she does take, she participates in her homeschool co-op. She does privately, she takes horseback riding lessons, and she's done that for a full year now, and that's gone really well, especially since she's a quieter, softer natured child. Being able to get on a full-size horse and command that horse, and it really builds up her confidence, and her teacher is absolutely wonderful and provides so much more than just riding lessons. So that has gone really well. We haven't had to change any curriculum or make any tweaks besides adding IEW to liking literature, and it's gone really well. I think she's progressing really well. I would say the only hiccup we've really had is, like I said before, she's entering those preteen years where it's just a lot of emotions and a lot of changes going on, and navigating that and realizing that what she's feeling is completely normal. To be frustrated really easily, to be upset, those are completely normal. And I'm glad we went through the human body unit when we did, because the end of the human body unit, we talked about reproduction and puberty. So she's understanding some of the changes happening and why her brain is reacting in certain ways. And I think it does help understanding why your body's going through this. Does it make it easier in the moment, when you're feeling really frustrated? No, but when she cools off after feeling frustrated, she does realize why those things are happening. So navigating that, but not relenting on it. So what do I mean by that? Meaning that she is pushing through and getting her work done. Now, is she sitting there crying? And no, nothing to that extreme, but she has days where she just doesn't want to do, the math, or, she always wants to do the reading. That's never an issue. Or the vocab. There are days where she's like, I just don't feel like it. And I totally get that. We all have days like that too, but understanding that she still has a responsibility as a student to do her work. This is her work right now. And I go more depth into this about, I'll link up the video above about how it's important to challenge your child, that we will work through the emotional and physical changes, but we will also be getting our work done as well, and learning how to navigate your work when you're going through different struggles or changes, because that is just a lifelong skill. Let's be real. We, as adults, we go through that all the time, right? Learning how to keep our life going and organized and do all the things we need to do while we have work, while we have school, while we have outside commitments, while we have personal things going on in our lives. Learning how to juggle all those things. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for her to learn how we cope with all those things going on at the same time. So that is the only little bit of pushback, is occasionally we get a little bit of attitude, a little bit, I don't want to, or this is too much. But again, getting down to that deeper meaning of it's not the curriculum, but it's just changes going on, and having grace with my child when it comes to that, knowing that, she's not trying to be bratty or mean or talk back. It's just a period we're going through, mind the pun, but just a period of life that things are just a little bit more of a struggle. I've heard that 4th and 5th grade emotionally can be trying. So we are trudging through that very well, I think, actually. And I think we have very open communication, which helps, and just giving each other the space that's needed when those moments take place. So that is everything for my 4th grader, her mid-year homeschool update. And the next video after this will be our group subjects and how everything with that is going. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. If not, thank you for watching.